Hey everyone, Dave Nimitz from Igneous Recording and Production Studio. If you like what you see, please subscribe, and if you know anyone that would benefit from this information, please pass it along. So let's say you decide to go with Igneous to record your song, and you want to play your own guitar part. Well, I'm going to help you learn how to get a great sounding guitar on your own with all your own stuff. So the first thing you're going to need is your guitar and your amplifier. The important part is that you're comfortable with your guitar. And for your amplifier, the best case scenario would be that you use a 10-inch or a 12-inch speaker. The reason that you want to use those is because the frequency response is going to be the most accurate in terms of what the microphone is picking up. So that leads me to the next point, the microphone. We have three different kinds of microphones that you have to choose from. You have a dynamic, a condenser, or a ribbon microphone. Dynamic is the most common, and it's the one that I'm going to be using right here to help you learn how to use a microphone. The dynamic doesn't require power. It's a really rugged piece of equipment, and it's versatile. Right now, I'm going to use the SM57 by Shure to record on my amplifier, but I normally use it on my snare drum. You could use it for vocals. You could use it anywhere, right? So again, a great microphone to have in your toolbox. So the next one is a condenser microphone. That requires phantom power, but it's going to give you a little bit more of a defined top end on your whatever you record. And then finally, you've got your ribbon microphone, and that's going to really smooth out some of that sound. It might give it like an older sound, or it's a really hard thing to define, but it's something that you definitely want to look into if you're going to stick with recording, right? But if you are just recording a couple of things here and there, or your budget is kind of limited, stick with the SM57. You won't be disappointed. So the next thing you're going to want is an audio interface, right? So how are you going to get the sound from the microphone into your computer? Well, you've got a couple of options, right? Because some of us don't have computers that run quite as fast, or we might have like a netbook or something like that. But what if you have an iPhone or you have an iPad, right? You can actually get an iRig and record in GarageBand there. That's already pre-populated, preloaded for you. So that's an option for you. But if you've got a computer that's pretty decent and up to speed, you want to get an audio interface, right? And your minimum number of inputs that you want is 2. And the reason I say 2 is because you might need 2 microphones someday when you're recording your own stuff, right? Or let's say I am going to use 2 microphones. I'm going to use one right on the amplifier, and I'm going to move one way to the back of the room so I just get the sound of the room too. You could record those both at once on 2 different tracks, and you can mix those independently of each other. So it's going to be a real benefit to you. So yeah, those are your options. There are so many name brands out there right now that I'm not even going to list a specific one. Just type in audio interface into your Google search or whatever, and you'll see what you turn up. Next thing is your DAW, or digital audio workstation, right? Again, there's really not one set specific type. It's about the sound quality, and all of them are in competition with each other right now. So you could use Pro Tools, Logic, Studio One, Fruity Loops, or just GarageBand, right? But the most important piece is that you record at a very minimum at a 16-bit bit depth and 44.1 kilohertz. That's going to be at least CD quality, right? If you want to go higher, that's great. You can go in 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, or 88.2, or even higher, right? When you get way up there, you're really not going to notice very much of a difference. But anyway, any of those are great. I prefer to record with Reaper. It's a very versatile program, and it's what I've gotten used to. I used to use something else, and I switched over, and I haven't looked back. Okay, so now that we went through all of those details, you want to set up your microphone, right? The first setup we're going to do is directly against the grow cloth, and we're going to point it directly at the center of the cone, and you're going to see what kind of sound that provides. So as you're doing this, before you actually start recording, you want to use your audio interface and whatever program that came with your audio interface to determine the correct volume, right? So get your guitar plugged in, get your amp on, warmed up, and start playing and start paying attention to what your level meters are doing, right? Green, you're good. Yellow, that means you're kind of getting into the hot zone, the danger zone, but you're still okay. Once you get into red with your level meter, that's not such a good thing. And the reason it is because it causes digital clipping. If you get digital clipping in your sample and you send it to me, there's nothing that I can really do about it. I might be able to take like some kind of noise reduction program and get rid of some of it, but it's just never going to sound the best, right? So stay out of the red. But that's only good for analog. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and give a listen to what this sounds like with the microphone pointed directly at the cone, right up on the grill. All right, so what'd you hear? There was a lot of top end, right? Well, it's really interesting because if you look at a spectrometer, you're going to notice that there's a lot of bass too. And that's one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. When you're recording directly up on the grill, a dynamic microphone is going to experience something called the proximity effect. Basically, it's just going to enhance the bass, right? Sometimes that's a good thing and it's what you want. But if you're doing a really dense mix with all kinds of instruments in it, it's really going to muddy up the mix and you're going to have to do some EQ cuts, right? So that's something to pay attention to. But if you're a guitar and a vocal, that might be exactly what you want, right? So just keep that in mind as we're going through this. One thing that I would like to recommend to you is that you get a spectrometer so that way you can see your frequency responses when you're recording. Because like I said, if you want to record a full band and you have these really heavy guitars and there's all kinds of bass in there and you just can't hear it on your speakers, but it's there because maybe, you know, they're not the best speakers or the room is weird as far as like the way that, you know, it resonates. And it just prevents you from hearing all the right frequencies. That computer program, it's actually a plugin that you can get for your DAW. That's going to benefit you greatly, right? There's a free one out there by Voxengo. It's called Span. So that's one that I would totally recommend. I actually use it regularly. So just keep that in mind as you're going through this. But we're going to go ahead and listen to a couple of more sounds. The next one that we're going to do is I'm going to set the microphone directly against the grill cloth. It's going to be right on the edge of the cone. So let's give that a listen and see what that sounds like. All right, so we heard what that sounds like. Kind of different, right? And it gives you kind of that impression of, I don't know, it reminds me of something. This particular one reminds me of something. I think it's more like a, kind of like a Jimi Hendrix or like a classic sound, right? And clearly I'm not playing a Strat, so I don't know. Maybe it's just luck that my guitar sounds like that when you record right there, right? Oh well. Anyway, we're gonna go on. We're gonna move on, and we're gonna do something called off-axis. So an off-axis recording is where you're just gonna take the microphone, instead of being pointed straight at the grill cloth, you're gonna turn it like 30, 45 degrees, and you're going to point it at midway between the center point of the cone and the edge of the cone, right? So you're getting it off axis. You're actually listening to the paper instead of the dome of the center of the cone. So let's see what that sounds like. Okay, finally, we've gotten to the end of the direct close-ups, but I want to show you what it sounds like when you back off the microphone, or back the microphone off the amp a little bit. So we're going to take the microphone and bring it back 12 inches from the speaker, and we're going to point it directly at the center of the cone and see what that sounds like. Okay, so you heard what that sounds like. Now we're going to go ahead and point it directly at the edge of the cone. And it's just going to be straight on and 12 inches away. Okay, one final recording to go. We're going to go ahead and go with an off-axis recording. We're going to go 12 inches away from the speaker, and you're going to point, again, midway between the center and the edge of the cone, right? So we're going to be recording the paper. Okay, as you heard, all of those sounds are very different, and you're probably wondering, well, when should I use those sounds, right? Again, you want to use a nice close-up sound when you want to have it sound like the guitar is right there in your face, right? If it's a pretty sparse recording, just vocals and guitar, I mean, you could either go off-axis or dead center on the cone, and you should probably be safe. If you don't like that high end, if it sounds a little bit more brittle, you can go off axis or you can go over to the edge of the cone, right? So let's say what you want to do now is you want to record a couple of guitar tracks and you want to get that classic wall of sound or that wall of guitar sound that most people are really trying to go for. So it sounds like you're just rocking. You want to hard pan all the way to the left with one of your guitar tracks, and you want to hard pan all the way to the right with your other guitar track. And then what that's going to do is it's going to take the stereo field and space the guitars out. But if you're listening to, your speakers and you close your eyes, you can hear that kick drum, you can hear the snare drum, and you can hear the lead vocals right up the center. But you hear these identical guitar tracks playing, and it just sounds like a really rich single guitar playing. And then over here, when you record something like that, you want to back off the amplifier a little bit. So it's not going to be such a up-in-your-face guitar sound, and you'll be able to really renegotiate the frequency spectrum in terms of, where your vocals are, where your drums are in the mix in relation to your guitar, right? So anyway, you could try any of those combinations. This is your baby, so you figure out where you want everything to sit in the mix, but you you definitely have to visualize that. And finally, I guess when you want to do a guitar solo, you probably want to be pointing towards the center of the cone because you're going to get that nice high end, and it's going to cut through all of the rest of the sounds. Unless, of course, you're looking for more of an ambient sound, and at that point, you can go off axis, close or distant, and you add your reverbs and whatnot, and you just find out really what's going to work the best for you. Yeah, so one final thing, the last thing you want to do is make sure that when you're recording that as a WAV file as opposed to MP3 because it's kind of lossy. But other than that, everything is pretty straightforward about what we're doing here. So I hope this really helped you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Go ahead and subscribe, and if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thanks.
I need a little help to finish what you started. Well, help.